nobody. Make you know the man your profiling. Leave your life, the hook will make you happy. I have to laugh, and if I won't watching, this baby you alone. Make you the watch your step on the road. Try to learn to be a player. And make sure the game not to play never. And don't let the play by make you deceive it. Make you think say you be better than everybody. Yeah, yeah. Because that's if you eat the only get in the capa and see what's around up I know I said give it to Baba. All the praise for Baba. Give it to Baba. I can't go the open no just go Baba. Give it to Baba. All the praise for Baba. Give it to Baba. A brand no be just like no be easy. Don't remember I can see them. Don't be greedy. Slow the speeding. I am gonna go bread now, baby. Cause your slow motion is better than no motion. Do something, take a notion, eh. Cause I be usually the start believing. So do what you can do. Choose the hard way and struggle. And if it be for you, true hard work and determination. Give it to Baba. All the praise for Baba. Give it to Baba. I carry the deal. No, just go Baba. Give it to Baba. All the praise for Baba. Praise for Baba. Give it to Baba. The deal.
Hello.
Uh, Welcome all of you across the world to our show, the Inspired Podcast Network, which is a Weekend Night Live with Samuel Jacob Sabe. And today we are once again excited to discuss the very important issue, which is it's an issue which is on the heart of many people, and we believe that to help us discuss and to dissect and to come up with some recommendations that will make an impact in our society, we have no mean a person but a good friend, a professor and a great scholar who will help us to have this discussion. Before we introduce our guests to audience, let me say that Be Inspired Podcast Network is an international NGO based in the Commonwealth of Virginia with its purpose to use media as a tool for social change. I want to first of all thank all my listeners across the world who are just tuning in to this program right now. I can see the numbers increasing. We have 1,942 people who have already tuned in from across the world to listen to this important program. And I want to let all of you know how grateful I am. And so let's listen to this music real quick, and then we will introduce our guest. Give it to Baba. All the praise for Baba. Give it to Baba. It's okay, baby.
Welcome to Weekend Night Live, hosted by Samuel Jacobs Abbey, where we play music, talk shows, and interviews on Be Inspired Podcast Network. Stay tuned and keep your dial on
Hello, my name is Quan Green, and I would love to share some products that I found that are very beneficial for not only my body, but I'm sure that they would really help your body. I found out that a lot of us are impacted and we need to be detoxed. And I found some wonderful products that will safely detox you and help to eliminate the weight and feel good about yourself. We also have products that will help grow your hair and give your skin more vibrant radiance and suppleness and help with wrinkles. I also have products that will help with joint pain as well as help you to lose weight. These products are all natural, therefore you don't have to worry about putting something in your body that's going to add problems to the problems that you may already be facing. So if you're interested, call at 706-426-1471, or you can email me at preciousjewel492.
Bienvenido a Weekend Night Live, dirigido por Samuel Jacobs Adoo, donde
with Samuel Jacobs Adoo on Be Inspired Podcast Network. Don't forget to stay connected, be inspired.
Alrighty, so once again, let me welcome all of you to the studios of the Inspired Podcast Network, and I want to go straight away to introduce our guest for today. He's in the person of Dr. Yaw Adoo. Dr. Nana Adoo is an education and management professional with 15-year plus of successful multidisciplinary skill set in organizational leadership and professional development. His research interests focus on employee work motivation and well-being, organizational change, and on certain employment relations. Dr. Adoo is an assistant professor of management at the College of Adult and Professional Programs at Shorter University in Georgia, United States. Currently, he is the founder and managing partner of Education and Management Consulting, LLC, an innovative organizational development consulting and solution company providing services on behalf of businesses and governments. Education and Management Consultants' mission is to empower organizations to achieve excellence by applying research-proven best practices and practical solutions to achieve satisfying results. And I must say also that Professor Adoo is an old student of Adisada College, and so I am super excited to invite him to this program. Dr. Adoo, you are welcome to Be Inspired Podcast Network.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. And we are all excited. I'm super excited also to let you know that all your friends from Adisada College are on the line as well, listening to you. Folks are listening to you from government in Ghana. I have a few individuals from the opposition in Ghana, the opposition NDC who are on the line listening to you. I have think tank groups who are also who have tuned in and they are listening to you. I have friends from government, the current administration, that I reached out to, and I asked them to tune into this program because I know you're going to talk about things that are important to each and every one of us. And so just be assured that you have a wider audience for this program. First of all, to begin with, why don't we just give you the opportunity to tell us a little about who you are and how you got to where you are?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Jake. To your audience out there, it is quite a privilege to be a guest to you. As Dr. Jake said, my name is Dr. Yaw Adoo. I've been in education and management consulting in the United States for about close to 20 years. I have been involved with a lot of organizations and local governments to get them the strategic edge that they deserve. My educational background, I was born and raised in Ghana, in West Africa. I also went to Adisada College, so I guess I'm the Santa Clausian. I am very proud of that feat. And I also went to sixth form at Ghana National College. So if you have some Nananum on your show, you have a representative here. I came to the U.S. in 1997, January. So I'm in my 20th year now, and I have, a tremendous experience with respect to working with people in general, but my passion is really working with individuals who have any form of disabilities. I am making an effort to come to Ghana in March this year, in the first week of March. I have a few conversations with some individuals prominent in the country. I intend to settle in the country. When I come in March, it will determine where everything goes. But in essence, my skills, I intend to actually use it to help, with the Ghanaian population, because thankfully we have a new government who is suggesting that they need talent and change to help to steer the ship forward. So I guess in general, that is where I come in with respect to my basic background. And I guess as we go along, we will be able to share more information from there.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for the brief introduction, and so just tell us a little about your association with a disability, because in your introduction you had mentioned that you have worked in the state of Georgia to promote people with disability. Just tell us a little, and that will propel our conversation into your paper, which will be our focal point for today.
Sure. I've been working in the field of developmental disabilities for the past 7 or 8 years in Georgia, particularly. My background, my master's degree is in public health, community health education, and policy development and administration. So I got this actually since we had the issue with 9/11 in this country. I was actually heading towards Wall Street. I wanted to make a lot of money, and when we had the 9/11 debacle, it changed everything. So because of that, I knew that there was a need for people who, by no fault of theirs, they were born with some form of disability. So my advisors in college were very instrumental in shaping my mindset on that level. So since then I've moved in and out of state and settled in Georgia since 2004, and I work with the former Georgia governor Sonny Perdue. There was an event at one college here called Kennesaw State University that was asking for strategic and policy professionals in the state to help frame the rape prevention for ladies and for men, and for some guys, some men. And my name was brought up, and I have been working. I worked with that particular commission until Governor Sonny Perdue's term was over. So I've worked with a lot of other small size organizations in the state, because if it's intimate, you can get more done at a small level, and being able to shape policy, lobby for funding, and also to be able to broadcast their issues on a larger scale through grants writing and a lot of other plethora of supports along those lines. And the type of assets that I have actually gotten, I think that it can be extremely of use generally in the state of in Ghana. And my family and I have decided on actually embarking on this path to see if indeed there is a support for this, so that I could be able to offer it with my team. Because the organization, the company that I formed, I work with a bunch of other professionals and consultants in the state. We've been doing a lot of pro bono supports up until now. So there are about 3 to 6, possibly 10 organizations that I chair on their board. I also serve as an advisory board member for a group. And indeed, at this time, 20 years here, I think that now that I'm young and I can be able to actually extend that set of assets and resources to Ghana, so that organizations such as the National Council on Persons with Disabilities in Ghana can certainly use this, as well as possibly the Vice President's Office or the Ministry of Employment, in a consulting sphere. So that's really where we are on this particular juncture.
Well, thank you very much. And I think the information that you just shared is very useful, and people have already started asking questions about what you just shared with your role in helping those who are physically challenged. But I'm not going to ask those questions now. We'll get to those questions as we move along. And so, Doc, I want to go into our conversation for today. On the 31st of March in 2016, the current Vice President of Ghana, Dr. Bawumia, outlined plans to solve the unemployment situation in Ghana. He was then in opposition, and I'm sure some way, somehow, those points that he proposed may have had an effect on the elections. I don't know, but you came up with a rejoinder, which I found very interesting. I spent time reading the rejoinder. I've read it, I think, more than 20 times. My producer and I have gone through, we've dotted the I's and crossed the T's, just to get a deeper understanding of your analysis. Now, before we go into the nitty-gritty and details of this 11-point rejoinder to Dr. Bawumia's proposal, tell me, what inspired you to write this rejoinder?
Well, that's a very, very good question. For the most part, significant research suggests that the issue of disability has not been either fully understood, particularly on the continent of Africa, or it has a different understanding to it. I also believe that for the most part, if you are working, you have to get your passion together. If you are less passionate, you can actually you can make so much money, you could do so much, but you may burn out over time. So in essence, I did significant research in Ghana in particular, as to what can be done to help with all the other issues that individuals with disabilities have. Now, in Ghana, it appears that the understanding of disability is skewed towards individuals who, so far as the eyes can see that there is a disability, it almost seems like it's skewed that way. But you see, disability is actually a little bit more than that. And that by itself is an opportunity to educate communities to have a better understanding. Like I said, many times some folks believe that if you are blind or if you're physically, disabled, that's virtually as far as it goes, so far as disability is concerned. But like I mentioned earlier, there are a lot more to it. And my rejoinder lists a number of them, which is actually parallel to United Nations UNESCO's definition of, disabilities. And also, I'm aware that for many Ghanaian families, there is an increased amount, for example, of the disability issue of autism. It is breaking up marriages. families are, accusing other family members of, engaging in some type of juju to, cause these mayhem into families, and the few research available on this particular issue is very concerning, and it prompted me to actually frame the idea as, okay, now if I want to make the biggest impact, what can I really do to create the type of attention that I guess has gotten me to speak to you now? And for any community to benefit, it appears that if they are empowered to be employed, that is one sure way of improving self-efficacy, which means the ability to be empowered and be, to do more for yourself and your family. So I narrowed down the argument, at least for now, with respect to getting the attention to making sure that folks who are physically or mentally or cognitively or developmentally disabled, if there can be a policy which can start with employment, then that by itself can alleviate some of the issues that may come with the issues of disabilities, particularly for those who are willing and able to do it. So I engaged. I looked into Ghana's records, and we have quite a bit too, as to how best to approach this issue. And thankfully, we are, the new government actually has a plan for it. In the MPP manifesto, there's actually, I have a copy here, chapter 11 of the manifesto. There is a section called Building a Fair and Inclusive Society that lists so many different policy driven, but the challenge is that, I guess the opportunity is that it is just bare policy and the meat on the bone is not in here. So, I use this opportunity to actually, encourage all out there, and Ghanaians in particular, myself included, to actually be more participatory in this government, because President Nana Addo Akufo Addo has mentioned that he is encouraging all Ghanaians to be very participatory, and not sit on the sidelines in making sure they deliver. So that's my understanding of that. And my region, Dr. Bawumia has a 10-point plan. It is very, very beautiful written. It has some room for questioning too at the same time. It appears that his discussion of this particular issue did not actually address any form of disability individuals' input in terms of them finding work, although it's in the manifesto. So I looked at it and I framed, based on my experience, some 5 policies to actually nudge the government to take a look at. There are at least 100 out there that I could offer, but 5 is good for now for a rejoinder. So that's where the encouragement came from. And I also intentionally did not elaborate the 10 points, because I wanted to engage the reader to do more by looking into it themselves. Either way, I have a copy here, and when it comes to the time that we have to answer some questions, I certainly can be able to address those 10 bullets. But indeed, I did offer another, which makes it an 11-point plan, which will focus more on inclusion of employment policies, specifically towards helping all of Ghana. Now, again, please understand that should the government be very interested in this, it may mean that the entire government may have to undergo some overhaul, which an overhaul would certainly be more than 4 years. So my notion and my hope is that of all the other organizations that serve people with disabilities, through this initial help, and whilst the I would say whilst the cameras are on this issue, we will all, come to the table and actually provide different aspects of how best to engage with people and persons with disabilities, specifically them having representation at the board or on the table, and not only limited individuals with physical disability, but indeed, because it's important that we address this issue, and I think that's the notion behind me writing the rejoinder and us having this conversation.
All right, thank you very much. So there's a question that just came in. The only reason why I wanted to ask this question before we go into the detail is because it relates to what you just described that inspired you to write the rejoinder. Now, the question is coming from somebody called Imoro, and Imoro is writing from Kaduna in Nigeria. And he said, the issue of disability has always been a big problem in Africa. Please ask Professor, how do you justify the perception or the notion of our culture and disability? How does that fit into the discussion?
Well, Imoro, that's a very good question, actually. Our culture is very complex across the board throughout Africa. And there is actually a need for us to address our culture, because we now are moving towards an era of, advanced technology, which in and itself can help with pushing the agenda of culture across board. I'm an educationist, so a lot of times when I'm framing arguments, it is skewed towards that. I believe very strongly that if there is a notion where people can be provided and afforded education, because of the education that they get, hopefully they can acquire competencies to critically think. Now, for many parts of Africa, that aspect is in its baby infant stages, for sure. In fact, there are very few institutions, particularly educational institutions, which actually challenge its students to actually do more than just chew, paw, pass, and forget, so to speak. So, in order to really address the issue of culture, I believe that if we can reform, our educational system to include all persons, to actually also critique our cultures, we can do more, because again, what I'm suggesting is not something that can be done overnight. It will require possibly a generation or two to be able to understand this particular phenomenon. Because whenever we do more in terms of giving ourselves a chance to build our socioeconomic status, it requires some type of change, and change sometimes conflicts with culture. So, we have to be very patient. We have to certainly address our overall educational system. We have to address our overall socioeconomic systems. All federal governments or all states or all countries would have to have people on the table who have real-time experience in how best to resolve some of these issues. Folks have to be willing to listen, so that, and a host of other deliverables that need to be addressed. If we can be able to do that, we can set ourselves an agenda. We can go back to what has already been designed, and and then we can break it into parts where people can actually understand the policy in question. Africa has had all kinds of issues with respect to corruption, and sometimes corruption also does not afford its people the resources they need to move forward. And some politicians may not even be actually seasoned professionals in the ministries that they actually hold certain positions. So, it's really expedient on us to address this holistically, if I can use that word, so that because our culture can sometimes be very insidious. It can be very painful, and particularly in the rural areas in many parts of Africa. Certainly, in many parts of Ghana, and I'm very certain in Nigeria as well. So, folks who are educated, there needs to be a means by which the education has to transcend to actually coming down to the level of other folks who may not, be that overly educated, so that there has to be that listening of people's challenges. There has to be that folks who are affected in any way, shape, or form, folks with persons with disabilities included, to be on the table. You can't have a board of director for any national agency with disability without having a person who is disabled on the board. And there are other things that can also be done, but from a governmental perspective, for sure, policy is a great start. It's not everything, but it is very, very, very complex. And the good news is that there needs to be an understanding within many communities that the complexities it will take some time, and that change is good, because over time, when people are educated about any type of issues through culture, a lot can be done that way.
Well, thank you very much, and I think you elaborated on it well. There is a follow-up question coming from Benin, and this is coming from a lady called Jeanette. And Jeanette, I think she's trying to share experience, because she has, it's a long letter, but let me just summarize it. She said, I was born with disability. I'm unable to walk properly. I have been to several meetings around the world to advocate for the right of the disabled. But unfortunately, when I come back to my own country in Benin, I'm unable to work in any building because the infrastructures are not designed to accommodate me. With your 11-point proposal, I read your article that was circulated through WhatsApp. How do we handle the issue of infrastructure and people with disability?
Very good point. I would want to first say that I am very proud of you. And, I always say that because you have a disability, it does not mean that you are unable to actually live regular lives. Africa per se, there has to be a time, and I believe that time is now, that we actually seriously look into this, because there's so much talent that persons with disabilities really have. You'll be very surprised as to some of the things many have done within their communities across the world. But that misunderstanding almost suggests that communities and governments, local and large, the mindset that propels the understanding of disabilities by itself is very negative. I'm using this platform hopefully to shed some light on that, because persons with disabilities are indeed not or should never be on the short end of the stick whatsoever. And I also believe that, and this has worked, at least in North America, that if people have the opportunity to work, many colleges and universities here in the United States have means by which we accommodate persons who are disabled in any way, in some type of form or manner. I have taught I've taught quite a bit, and we have to design and structure different types of tests, for example, to accommodate, either from the Braille all the way to, changing multiple tests, using technology to teach through visual. There are so many different software out there. But you see, this has to be almost a universal circumstance. It has to be a universal circumstance. And there has to be that understanding of what it means to embrace disability as an important, you know, segment in our community. And again, it starts with communities. It starts with people in power to be given and to be nudged to, to embrace this. And it will be important to, specifically to find a way to organize and embrace technology, embrace social media. Social media has proved to be a means by which agenda can be pushed quicker than before. There are so many means through YouTube, other means through Google Hangout, Skype, and other mediums by which a good call for action can be engaged through the use of social media. Indeed, in Africa, we have proof of the effect of social media to, especially in North Africa, where governments have been forced to understand the plight of its people. So it is, for me, see, I try to be as practical as I can. Social media is definitely one way to do that. You can have a group of individuals who actually can come together, put their circumstance in the video, and then make sure that it is actually communicated within churches and within mosques and within other places of worship, to be part of the agenda of worshiping. Or it could be, when it's election time, for example, if we are in a community or an organization or a country which engages in elections, you can certainly push the agenda. Again, there are so many things out there that can actually be used to push the agenda of individuals with disability, but I am all for having them to have a seat at the table. There can be a consortium by which they select their own members and make sure that they put the agenda out there. Now, and that would also mean that other folks who may be disabled, other than being visually impaired or physically challenged, autism, PTSD, ADHD, all of these are forms of disabilities, and there needs to be room for communities to, like I said earlier, to understand that indeed it's not, it's something that can be taken care of, but it will require a whole lot of overhaul of education of this situation. I hope I answered your question.
Well, I'm sure you did, because you've elaborated it well. I'm sure Janet will respond, but I could see her typing, so I will let you know what she says. So let's go straight into these recommendations that you proposed. So I'm looking at the policies here, and you had mentioned that you are recommending that there should be a 3% minimum hiring quota for Ghanaians qualifying applicants with a disability. What do you think will be the outcome if governments? So no, let me put it this way, Doc. Do you think this proposal is possible, and if not, why not?
Well, very good point. If you take a look at the National Council on Persons with Disability. Now, this is for Ghana. The National Council on Persons with Disability. I have a copy of their guidelines here. It's called, this is online too, so if you're on Google, you certainly can type this in. The guidelines for the disbursement and management of the District Assembly Common Fund for Persons with Disability, right? Page 2 has on the preamble that noting that under Section 2 of the DACF Act, Parliament annually allocates certain percentage. It's currently 7.5% of the total revenue of Ghana to district assemblies, recognizing that persons with disability are allocated a percentage to the DACF. And again, DACF stands for the District Assembly Common Fund. It is currently 2%, right? So if a new government is suggesting that it's embracing change, then I recommend 3%. Now, the 3%, I got it based on the percentage of, we don't have current data in terms of the number of persons with disabilities in Ghana so that it can help us to really formulate policy and save some money. We don't have that. But there has been, there has been proven that at least 20% of Ghanaians, 2 out of every 10 Ghanaians have some form of disability. So if the current standard is 2%, I am recommending 3%, and I'm recommending 3% with the hope that we can be able to afford it because, the new president is asking for a lot of different task reforms that can engage to increase the economic growth of Ghana. So it is really very small, but in management, you have to set measurable goals. You have to set a goal which is difficult but attainable. So we can start off with 3, with the hope that within 4 years, the new parliament will actually have this as part of the first bills that they pass. And if we can attain 3%, I can almost assure you that, many persons with disabilities who can vote in Ghana, if they are getting these type of supports, can actually vote for the government. It's proven time and time again that if you really tap into the social development of individuals, you're going to have a sure guaranteed votes at the ballot. So that's where the 3% came in. Now, please bear in mind that the NPP government has indeed structured in its manifesto a series of outlines to actually help persons with disabilities, and page 125 of their 192-page manifesto and page 126 has specifically been, outlined some of the things that they want to do. Again, I can go over it one by one, but I'm not sure if there will be another time in this podcast that I can elaborate. But if you want me to go over it, I can certainly go over it and then offer some of the tweaks that they can have to make a better impact.
No, I think what will happen is that the follow-up questions that will come, we will communicate that to you through our social media platform, and then we'll be able to interact because there's a lot of data that you've presented that I want us to take a look at it. Now, I'm also looking at the second policy that you submitted, requesting or recommending that the ministries and departments should develop a culture or cultivate a culture of disability inclusion in all ministries and departments. Now, this goes back to the question that Jenny asked. I was in Ghana last year, and when you look at the edifice, the structures of our ministries, as if the architects of the buildings did not even have in mind about people with disability. And so how is this physically going to be possible? Now, keep in mind, we want to look at government budget because you had mentioned that some of these proposals need to require government overhauling, meaning that some structures have to be re-edified. Now, do you think the government has that resources? And if they are not, which likely partner will you recommend to government to outsource funding from to help make this a reality and not some idealistic dreams?
Well, great question again. Yes, the answer is yes, it can be done. And it can be done because, for the most part, it has to be an issue of people, and it has to be either from down, meaning President Akufo-Addo himself making this part of his agenda, and ensuring that the ministers who are currently under vetting also understand this situation, and also from bottom up. Bottom up meaning regular and ordinary Ghanaians who would take the time to understand what it means to have, how blessed they may be, particularly for those who are able-bodied, to understand what it means to to be in the shoes of a person who actually may be disabled to a degree. Secondly, there has been so much policy taken care of from one government to another. We're very fortunate as Ghanaians for that. The challenge is that it's not in reality. In fact, President Akufo Addo has mentioned that some of the monies that are actually allocated are not disbursed. Page 126 of the manifesto. They have to ensure that the portion of the District Assembly's Common Fund meant for persons with disabilities are disbursed through the decentralized district and regional offices of the NCPD. NCPD meaning the National Council of Persons with Disabilities. So I guess to move forward to address this issue, we have to find a timely manner to be able to disburse this. And it has to be expedited from a regional and decentralized standpoint with oversight. I am very encouraged about the Ministry of Evaluation, I believe. I would hope that this particular ministry I would hope that, in fact, the folks who are really on the ground should be independent. I would also hope that they embrace some of the quality professionals from the National Democratic Congress, because if we are taking over from them, it would be nice to have folks, who particularly those who are competent and qualified to be part of this. You see, and again, I may be sounding a little bit non-partisan, but if we say we're going to be the government of change, we have to understand that change is not easy, but change is doable. So, I outlined certain basic stuff that we can do. I mentioned set clear communications and expectations. Now, communications is certainly two-way, and communications is either direct or indirect. I'm more concerned about the indirect communication. Let's start with the ministries. To set the bar rolling. So that if within the ministries we have a person whose responsibility it is to actually ensure that this policy is adhered to, then we would have to, ministry by ministry, set up their own parameters to ensure that staff actually follow through with this. Now, this is very important. Now, it may not even be an issue for persons with disabilities, but it will certainly be an issue of being efficient. So, if we have an efficient ministry, then I'm very certain that, you would have all other parameters of governance being efficient. And efficiency would also mean that we will curtail on some of the costs, and then we could get things done, in a manner that is actually suitable to the manifesto and suitable to Ghanaians in particular, and also engaging people to be part of this. Again, I'm also encouraged by the fact that the president has said that Ghanaians have to be citizens and not spectators. So that is very, very, very encouraging. And I have taken the bar and I'm running with it because I want to be a good citizen, and citizenship requires responsibility. So we can do a lot of things. We can encourage management to retain employees. If a person is disabled, for example, and because they may not have the current structure of getting to work in a timely manner. Now, structure is big because from transportation to the building to infrastructure, everything has to be able to work together. It would take some time, like I said earlier. But if we can embrace the fact that, look, we're going to be practically inclusive. We don't want to wait till we have a person in our own families who is disabled to a degree, then we pick up the placard and fighting for them. We all have to understand that this is something that is doable. People don't intentionally want to be disabled when they are born. So I am very fortunate and blessed to have a family without disability, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't fight for this cause. Now that I have the camera on my face, I'm very certain that this has to be part of the agenda. And I'm very patient, and although I'm being patient, I'll also be very loud to making sure that government actually actually include some of the recommendations that I have suggested. And again, the policy as I see in the manifesto is broad, and I would want to see it broken down so that folks like myself who read it will get to see what are the meats and potatoes in it, so we will be able to hold each other accountable to ensure that indeed folks who are disabled to any degree are not left out of the Ghanaian national.
Thank you very much. There's a question coming from Hector, and Hector, she's writing from the UK, from the Scotland, but she's a Ghanaian living in the Scotland, and she said, "I have been following Kinley, and I've listened attentively to all that the professor is saying. Now, my question to the professor, will he recommend that there should be a ministry responsible for disability and the physically challenged? If we could establish a ministry for Zongo communities, why don't they consider having a ministry responsible for people with disability? Will the professor recommend that? If not, why not?"
The answer is yes and no. Let me address yes first. This government has shown already that part of management may be breaking, in economics we call it, division of labor, right? Where you want to make sure that every small component is actually addressed to fix the smaller stuff with the hope that it fixes the bigger stuff, okay? If there is funding or available to actually create a department for disability, sure, why not? In fact, if that is the case, then I would want to have folks who are actually disabled to any degree to actually manage, who are qualified, be able to manage this particular ministry. So the answer is yes to that particular degree. It's no when indeed we don't have funding, because it appears that, in fact, I have Ghana's economic outlook for 2016 here. It appears that we have a bit of a downturn right now. Our economic state of affairs can be better. So that would mean that, the taxes and all the other, net profits from exports and all the other funds really coming in to boost the Ghanaian economy, for sure, let's try to steer the ship. And that would mean that rather than having a ministry, we certainly can have a bureau. We can have a bureau in every ministry, but report centrally to possibly the Ministry for Social Works, to provide some level of accountability as to how every ministry is actually doing its part to ensure that they abide by rights which are in the in the laws of the land. So yes, if there is money, because what we see on paper may not necessarily translate to the reality, but if there is money that President Akufo Addo can actually disperse, I don't think I have a problem with the creation of disability services, because that has a lot of advantages, because that would mean that all the different types of disabilities will be addressed, right? And I would also encourage that the focus should include employment opportunities, just like every other, because the 10-point bullet, like I mentioned earlier, it appears that is for folks who are physically able. If that can also be translated to people who are, disabled, that'd be wonderful. But if that type of money is available, then of course we can create bureaus in every ministry to report centrally to the Ministry for Social Works.
Alrighty. So then the question that one may ask, and I see Hector typing back saying agrees with you. But so then let's move on, because I'm also looking at the time. The the next bullet point that I want us to look at, you have to come back sometime in the course of the month to finish this, because there's a lot of data that I want to share, but time wouldn't permit us. Now, you had also suggested that the private sector companies should be encouraged to be giving, or either be giving some sort of subsidies or incentives for hiring people with disabilities. My question is that, why will government be the one to initiate this move? The individuals and the CEOs and the directors of these private sector businesses, don't they recognize what you have identified? What is it that what type of lens that you are wearing that they are not wearing that same lens to see what you see? Because, clearly, if they need to be inspired or pushed by government to take this responsibility, then there's a missing link between our culture and our system and our HR system. What do you think? How do we go forward with this?
Well, I know that every business is in the business of making money, and they talk business. They talk money. So wherever a company, a private company, is in operation, they look at two things. They look at how best to make as much profits as possible, or they will have to look at how best they can cut costs as possible so they can make more money, right? So the notion here is that with the emphasis on private sector, if we have an organization, if we have any type of small and large, which wants to really include small contractors, who are disabled to any form, right? But they can get things done. We can have a recommendation to suggest that there is a record to say, I helped X number of companies to be able, so that it can be self-employed and they can have self-efficacy. And then the notion is that if they are able to show this to the government, I suggest that the government cuts them a slack in terms of the taxes that they pay nationally. This is to encourage them to really include folks. So if you're in the business or you want to, mix a little bit more money or pay less taxes, then you may be encouraged to actually hire a certain percentage of contractors or other professionals who so happen to be disabled, so that it may be a win-win situation. That's the notion.
Got you. All right, so that sounds good. So I have a question, and this question is coming from our good friend Polas, and the question to you is that will Ministry for Gender, Children and Social Protection qualify to handle disability issues instead of forming another ministry specifically for disabilities? Just as the question that Heta asked.
The answer is no, it's not. Because when we do it that way, it may marginalize disability as a whole, right? Again, we have to understand that every part of human community has persons who are disabled. I want to make this clear. We should try our best not to look at disability as only physical or visual. If we do that, we may miss out. There are a lot of people, we have a lot to do to tackle this situation in terms of the taboos of the land, some laws which are discrete, some community and mores and norms which are very, very, it's very abiding. Folks who are really going through this know exactly what I'm talking about. There has to be a separate bureau, If we can afford a ministry, we certainly can afford an office, office of disability for every department, of ministry. And the sole purpose is to ensure that those who have been hired or the type of people they engage with can have a spokes agency to report certain challenges to. It's not something that cannot be done. And I'm trying so hard to shed light on this issue whilst we actually go about doing what we really do. That, I mean, every component of the government and the community has to really have another set of ears and eyes to understand what it means for a person who is autistic. You know, there are so many different variations of autism, for example, or there are so many different variations of ADD, attention deficit disorder, or so many variations of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. We have some women, for example, who go through significant child labor, and by the time they have their babies, it almost suggests that they don't want anything to do with the babies. They are detached from the baby and the family, and that needs to be understood by families, and it also needs to be understood by communities in general. You know, it's not something that cannot be done. It has to be from the self, and self suggests that education is a good means of doing that. Thankfully, we have Google and we have other means by which we can instantly find out information. So hopefully, this becomes one of the means by which information is actually disseminated, or shared, so that people will take an extra time to actually, look into this. Having children and women's ministries handling disability issues is, in my point of view, based on my experience, not the most appropriate. I think it would be best to be handled on a separate part of the ministry, or, like I said earlier, a ministry by itself, for people to actually have this type of engagement. It has to certainly be introduced in schools, from middle school, or I would say primary school, all the way to universities and colleges, where there has to be accommodation for these situations. So it's not it is cost effective, and it's not something that can add a lot more to the government's expense, I don't think.
Alrighty. Like I said to my listeners, there is enough information to be shared, and I will encourage you, if you have not read the article that I included in the announcement. The article is currently published on in graphic. It's published in Peace FM website. After this show ends, we're going to publish it on our website as well, so you can take opportunity to read and to form your own opinion and develop a lot of questions out of which Dr. Adoo is more than willing to respond to the questions. We are actually run out of time. We are at the last point of the program, and the strategy of our organization is that we don't want to keep people more than an hour, so we are at that point where we have to wrap it up now. But like I said, I will make arrangement to get Dr. Adoo to come back to finish this point. We've only looked at just 4 of the 11 points plan, so you can imagine that there's a lot of information that he has to share with the public. But before I give him the opportunity to wrap it up, I just want to, first of all, thank everybody who have tuned in. Doc, I am super grateful for coming to the studio. You have no idea the number of audience that have followed you to this program. As we speak now, we have a total number of 21,305 people who have tuned in to listen to you from across the world. I want to say a big thanks to all my followers in the UK, in Argentina. I know I'm receiving a lot of bash that they want this program to be translated into Spanish, but we'll get there. I'm still doing my Spanish classes, so very soon I will start hosting my Spanish folks. But nonetheless, I think we have a good day, and Dr. Adoo has done a thorough job analyzing his points plan, even though we are unable to finish it in total. But even that which he has provided is enough information that we can utilize. And I'm very certain and hopeful that after the program, I'm going to receive a lot of phone calls from folks in government and opposition who have tuned in, because unfortunately I cannot disclose some of their identity, but I'm receiving messages and receiving WhatsApp messages from those in government and in opposition telling me that, Doc, you did an awesome job by elaborating on your point, and the recommendations are well noted. So you never know where this ends up with. Part of our responsibility is to ensure that we put out the information there for folks around the world to listen to what you have to say. Before I come to you again to wrap up this program, let me suggest and make this quick announcement. There are two quick announcements that I want to make. First of all, I want to say that this Saturday today a live concert for Danineti, the gospel artist demised somewhere last year in Ghana, but the going to at 7 p.m. Eastern Time at the St. Paul United Methodist Church in Woodbridge, Virginia. So if you happen to be in the DC metro area, please ensure that you pass by to celebrate the life of such a wonderful person. The second announcement is that if you are a decided old student and you live in Northern America, just get to know that the Memorial Day weekend is on. We've started a campaign. Invite all your friends and families and join us this May during the Memorial Day weekend to celebrate with us, because you cannot be that disco spirit. That is where we gather and we have fun. And so just make sure you put yourself together to be in the Washington, D.C. area during the Memorial Day weekend celebration this time around. Let me also quickly say congratulations to the year 2000, the Decided College 2000 year group for tuning into this program, and all over the guys from Ghana and in those in the US, Ben, General Tito and Co, who have all tuned in to support this program. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I want to say a big thank you to our own comrade, Dr. Adoo in Atlanta, a great supporter of this show. We love you and we salute you. Dr. Adoo, I give you this opportunity to please wrap it up for us.
Okay, thank you very, very much again, Dr. Jake, for having me. To the Ghanaian government officials who are listening in, I want to extend my utmost congratulations to you for coming into power. I know you know that with power comes responsibility. I am encouraged again to hear that you are a government of change. And I am very certain that you do understand that change comes with a lot of different challenges that to shake and break and get better, it will require the fullest use of all resources. I'm also encouraged to know that President Nana Adoo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has extended a hand to Ghanaians at home and abroad to actually help him to lead this country to greater heights. I am taken up on this and willing and able to actually help Ghana to that effect. So, I'm willing to forego, because this is a bigger call. It's really bigger than me. The overall situation in helping Ghana to become better than it is, I'm all for it. And to the opposition who may be listening in as well, I encourage you to not actually sit on your laurels, but to ensure that you actually hold the current government accountable in a civil manner, so that they can actually hope to accomplish what they can't. And if they can't, then of course you may have a chance of doing what you can do. Now, I will be in Ghana in the first week of March of this year. I have scheduled TV and radio um, interviews, and I'm willing and able to really engage in all kinds of community partners and government officials or anybody who may be interested in what I can offer with my team. I, you know, I guess I will rely on Dr. Jake to actually give you my information. But if I can, I sure can be able to offer in terms of an email, at least for now, so that you can actually, we can have a conversation about how best we can really move this forward, tap it into the talent and the resources that we have available. I am very hopeful also for people and families and persons who have any type of disability, that now that we have the opportunity to shed a light on some of the challenges that we face, we can be able to constructively frame it in such a way that the community, it's not a curse, or it's not to have to deal with a person with disability of any sort. So it really isn't. So basically, this is where I come in with respect to helping to shed light on that particular issue across governmental boards. And I am also proud to be here. I'm a member of an organization called the Erratic Truth Foundation. I'm more interested in the social development part of things, where we shed light on some of the social issues that face many Ghanaians, particularly Ghanaians who are poor, or students who are poor. I'm very passionate about that. So, that's where my passion is certainly driven. And thank you for having me. It is certainly a pleasure, and I certainly will be more than happy to come back again to elaborate on some of the creative ways by which we can move forward, and to take a look at some of the things that the government has said it will do, and how best we can help the government to actually do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We appreciate you, and we thank you for everything that you have shared with us. And this audio, the recorded version, will be put on our website within 24 hours of the program. And so on that note, I want to thank you once again, and I want to thank all of you for tuning in, and a big shout out to Erratic Truth. Love all of you for the support. God bless you. And Dr. Adoo, we'll talk later. Thank you for coming once again. Have a good night.